The ground trembled as though the earth itself was alive, and the river roared louder than thunder. I remember that night clearly. The screams, the rushing water, the smell of fear thick in the air. People clutched their children, their belongings, their gods carved in wood as the river rose higher and higher. But this is not where the story begins. Number it began many seasons earlier, when we, the children of the forest, first came upon the river that would change our lives forever. I was young then, maybe 17 reigns old, when our people left the lands that had grown hostile. My father said the earth had turned its back on us. Our crops failed, our goats sickened, and quarrels split the clan into pieces. With no choice, we gathered what little we had and walked into the great unknown forest. The forest was thick, a wall of green so heavy it swallowed sunlight. The air buzzed with insects, and every step felt watched by unseen eyes. The elders carried their charms, whispering prayers to keep spirits away, while hunters sharpened spears in case wild animals attacked. We were tired, hungry, but hopeful. Somewhere, we believed, there was a land that would welcome us. Days turned into weeks. We built temporary shelters from branches, but the forest fought us. Snakes coiled near our fires, strange sickness spread in the nights, and the trees themselves seemed angry when we cut them. Children cried with fever, mothers wailed, and still we moved deeper. I remember one night when the moon hid and the forest grew restless. I heard whispers, like voices carried on the wind. My cousin swore he saw shadows dancing between the trees, figures with glowing eyes. The elders warned us, the spirits here do not know us. We must not anger them. But anger them we did. One morning, desperate for farmland, our people cleared a wide patch of forest. Trees fell with heavy thuds, roots ripped from the soil. Fires burned to clear the brush, and smoke rose into the sky. The hunters laughed, proud of their work. They said we had conquered the forest. But that night, sickness spread faster than before. Children coughed blood, women wailed as babies grew cold in their arms, and strong men collapsed with fever. The drums of mourning sounded almost every day. Some said it was punishment. Others said we had brought it on ourselves by disrespecting the land. My father, who was wiser than most, said softly, "The forest spirits do not forgive easily. We are guests here, and guests must show respect." I believed him. It was my mother who first saw the river. She had gone searching for herbs at dawn, when she returned with eyes wide as the moon. "I heard her," she whispered. "Who?" the women asked. "The river," she called to me, "sweet water, singing water." We followed her, pushing through thick undergrowth until we heard it too, the sound of rushing water, clear and strong. When we broke through the trees, the sight stole our breath. There it was, a wide, shining river, glittering like glass under the sun. Birds skimmed across its surface, and fish leapt as though welcoming us. The air was cooler, fresher, filled with promise. We dropped to our knees, cupped water in our hands, and drank. It was sweeter than anything I had ever tasted. After so many weeks of fear and sickness, hope returned. But hope, as we soon learned, is always tested. The elders decided we should build by the river. It would give us fish, fertile land, and safety. They poured libations, palm wine spilled on the ground, to thank whatever spirit guarded the water, but not all were convinced. Some laughed, saying it was only water, nothing more. That night, the river rose. I was asleep when I heard the sound, a deep, rolling thunder that was not thunder. People shouted, "The river! The river!" I ran outside, my heart pounding. The water had swollen, rising onto the banks, swallowing the fires we had set. And then, I swear by my ancestors I am not lying, the river opened. A figure rose, tall and glowing, crowned with sunlight and mist. Her skin shimmered like flowing gold. Her eyes were as deep as the river itself. Her voice, when she spoke, was like the sound of rushing water, soft yet fierce. "Children of the forest," she said, "you walk blindly, forgetting respect. This is my home. I am Oshun, mother of sweet waters. If you honor me, I will bless you. But if you forget, if you turn away, I will leave you to hunger and sorrow." We fell to our faces, trembling. No one dared breathe. My father whispered, "We have found our mother." At dawn, the elders gathered everyone. They had no doubt it was Oshun herself, the river goddess. The oldest among us, Baba Odu, stood and declared, "We must honor her. Without her, we are nothing." So we began to build not just homes, but a covenant. Every year we would return to the river with gifts, calabashes of honey, woven cloth, food from our harvest. We would dance, drum, and sing her praises. And in return, Oshun gave us life. The land grew fertile. Yams burst from the soil, goats grew fat, and children laughed instead of cried. Women who had longed for children found their wombs blessed. The town of Osogbo was born. I watched with wonder. We had been broken, scattered, but now we had hope again, all because of her. The first festival for Oshun was like nothing I had ever seen. Drums beat like thunder, men danced with fire, women's voices rose in songs that carried across the forest. We dressed in our brightest cloth, painted our bodies, and marched to the sacred grove where the river bent in a wide curve. At the front walked the priestesses, crowned in white and gold. They carried calabashes filled with honey, kola nuts, and palm oil. They sang praises to Oshun, calling her the mother of children, the giver of sweetness, the protector of Osogbo. When they set the offerings into the water, the river shimmered. Fish leapt high, and a cool wind blew through the crowd. Everyone cheered. It was her sign. She had accepted us. That night, we feasted until the moon sank. For the first time in many seasons, we were not afraid. But blessings come with warnings. Years later, when Osogbo had grown strong, people began to forget. They grew proud of their farms, their wealth, their numbers. Fewer offerings were brought to Oshun. Some even mocked the priestesses, saying, "It is our hands that bring harvest, not the river." I knew it was dangerous. My father warned me, "Never forget the covenant. Oshun gives, but she can also take." They did not listen. The night it happened, I was woken by the sound of screaming. The river had risen again, higher than ever before. Houses were swept away, fields drowned. I saw mothers clutching babies, men shouting in despair, children lost in the flood. And in the center of the raging waters, I saw her again, Oshun, her eyes blazing. She did not speak, but we understood. She was reminding us. We fell to our knees, begging forgiveness, offering whatever we could throw into the waters, food, cloth, beads, even personal treasures. Slowly, the river calmed. The waters receded, leaving the town shaken but alive. Since then, no one dared forget again. Every year, the festival grows louder, brighter, more devoted. We know now, if Oshun turns away, Osogbo will fall. And I know because I saw it with my own eyes. After the flood, no one dared question Oshun's power again. Her name was on every tongue, her grove sacred, her river untouchable. But she did not rule us through fear alone. She gave us blessings, guidance, and protection. The years passed, and Osogbo grew strong. Markets filled with traders, hunters brought meat from the forest, and children ran freely through the streets. Every year, we honored Oshun with festivals, gifts, and dance. But the heart of her worship was not the people. It was her priestess. Her name was Aduni. She had been chosen as a child when sickness nearly took her life. Her mother carried her to the river, begging Oshun for mercy. The child recovered, and from that day, the elders said she belonged to the goddess. Aduni grew into a woman of striking beauty, tall, with skin like smooth bronze, eyes that glowed in the firelight, and a voice that carried like a drumbeat. But more than beauty, she carried the river's spirit. When she spoke, people listened. When she sang, the river itself seemed to echo her. The elders said Oshun had placed her spirit inside Aduni. I believed them. Every year, it was Aduni who led the festival. She carried the sacred calabash, her feet never faltering, her face radiant with devotion. When she prayed, it was as though the goddess herself stood among us. But power brings burdens. As Osogbo flourished, so too did pride. Some families grew wealthy, trading cloth, ivory, and salt. Others grew jealous, whispering that the priestesses grew fat on the offerings meant for the goddess. I remember a man named Adebayo, a strong hunter with a loud voice. He often said, "Why should one woman speak for us all? Why should our best food and cloth be thrown into the water when our children still go hungry? If Oshun is truly kind, she would not demand so much." His words spread like fire. Some listened, nodding. Others spat and called him a fool. But I saw the danger. To doubt Oshun was to invite her anger. Aduni, too, heard these whispers. Yet she did not shout or curse. She only said, "Oshun gives more than she takes. Without her, we would not be here." But people forget quickly when their bellies grow full. The next festival came with more splendor than ever. Drums thundered from dawn, masks and dancers filled the streets, and traders from far lands joined in the celebration. Aduni led the procession, carrying the sacred calabash filled with honey, palm wine, and fruits. She wore white cloth embroidered with gold, and her head was crowned with a circle of cowrie shells. She looked not like a woman, but like Oshun herself walking among us. We followed her to the grove, our voices rising in song. Oshun, mother of sweetness, Oshun, giver of life, take our gifts, bless our children, keep Osogbo safe. When Aduni set the calabash into the river, the waters shimmered again, ripples glowing under the moonlight. Fish leapt, and the crowd gasped. "Oshun accepts," Aduni cried. The people shouted with joy, dancing, throwing more gifts into the river, cloth, beads, cowries. The night was alive with drums and laughter. But in the crowd, I saw Adebayo, arms crossed, eyes dark. He did not sing. He did not cheer. Weeks later, Adebayo gathered a group of men by the marketplace. He stood tall, his hunter's bow slung across his back, and said, "We waste too much on the river. Our children starve while honey and cloth sink beneath the waters. If Oshun truly exists, let her prove her power again. Let her bless without our gifts." Some gasped, others muttered in agreement. I felt a chill. To speak such words was dangerous enough, but to demand proof from a goddess was to mock her. Aduni heard of it, of course. She came to the market herself, calm and steady, her priestess beads clinking as she walked. She faced Adebayo and said softly, "Oshun has nothing to prove. It is we who must prove our respect." But Adebayo laughed. Respect or fear? If she is truly kind, she should not demand endless gifts. She should bless us freely. The crowd held its breath. Aduni only shook her head. "You speak with pride, Adebayo. Be careful, the river listens." Her words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. The days that followed were strange. The river, once lively, grew quiet. Fishermen returned with empty nets. Women who came to wash said the water felt colder, heavier. Even the trees near the bank seemed to droop. People grew restless. Oshun is angry, some whispered. We have failed her. Others blamed Aduni. She takes too much, demands too often. Maybe the goddess has turned away from her. But I remembered her warning. The river listens. Then came the drought. For weeks the sun burned hot, the ground cracked, and crops wilted in the fields. The river shrank, its once glittering surface turning dull. Fear spread through Osogbo like smoke. Adebayo stood tall again. See, the goddess has no power. She cannot help us now. But deep in my heart, I knew it was not that she could not. It was that she would not. One night, unable to sleep, I walked to the river. The moon was high, and the water glowed faintly. There, on the banks, I saw Aduni kneeling, her hands raised, tears streaming down her face. Mother, she whispered, why have you turned away? Have we not honored you? Have I failed you? Her voice cracked, and she struck her chest with her fist. Take me if you must. Punish me, not my people. Her words cut me. She was carrying the weight of all of Osogbo on her shoulders. And then I saw it, a ripple in the water, slow and deliberate, a golden shimmer, a soft voice carried on the wind. Aduni, daughter of the river. The people grow proud. They forget the covenant. I will remind them. Aduni bowed low, sobbing. Tell me what to do. But the river gave no answer. The shimmer faded, and silence returned. The very next day, an omen came. A flock of birds, white herons, flew over the town, their cries sharp and haunting. They circled 3 times above the marketplace before vanishing into the forest. The elders gathered. It is a warning, Baba Odu said. Osun is preparing her hand. Fear gripped the town. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Men sharpened charms. Women whispered prayers. But Adebayo stood in the square and shouted, Do you not see? Nothing will happen. These are only tricks of the priestesses to keep us in fear. We need no river goddess to survive. We are strong enough. Some cheered. Others stayed silent, afraid. That night, the air grew heavy, thick like a storm that would not break. The river lay still, too still, as if waiting. I could not sleep. My bones ached with dread. I knew something was coming, something that would change Osogbo forever. The sun showed no mercy. Day after day, it scorched the land until the soil cracked like broken pottery. Dust clung to our skin, and the air shimmered with heat. The river, once proud and flowing, thinned into a sluggish trickle. Our yams withered. Our goats bleated weakly, ribs sharp against their hides. Children cried with thirst, their lips cracked and bleeding. The laughter that had once filled Osogbo was gone. Fear ate at us more than hunger. We whispered that Osun had turned her back, that she had closed her sweet waters against us. Every morning, Aduni led prayers at the riverbank. She knelt in the dust, poured what little palm wine she could find into the shrunken stream, and begged, Osun, mother of sweetness, remember your children. Do not leave us. But the water only gurgled faintly, as if mocking us. Adebayo grew bolder. He strode through the town, voice booming, muscles gleaming with sweat. See how the priestess kneels? See how she begs, and still the river stays dry? Where is your goddess now? She is nothing but a story told to frighten children. He laughed, and his followers, hunters and young men tired of fear, laughed with him. I saw Aduni watching from afar, her face pale but steady. She said nothing, only tightened her beaded belt and walked away. But silence can be more dangerous than words. The next market day, when the town gathered, Adebayo raised his voice again. If Oshun truly exists, let her show herself now. Let her fill the river before our eyes. If she does not, then we are free from her bondage, free from the lies of priestesses. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some covered their mouths, others spat on the ground to ward off bad luck. Aduni stepped forward, her white cloth now stained with dust, but her bearing still regal. "Adebayo," she said, her voice steady, "you play with fire. Do not call the goddess with mockery. She answers in ways you cannot bear." But Adebayo smirked. "If she is so mighty, let her strike me down here and now." The crowd murmured in fear. Some begged him to stop, but he raised his arms wide, defiant. Nothing happened. The sun blazed. The river remained still. Adebayo turned in triumph. "You see, she is nothing." The crowd erupted, some cheering, others weeping. For the first time, I felt true terror. It was not silence that haunted me, but what silence meant. Oshun was watching, waiting. That night, Aduni came to my father's compound. Her eyes were shadowed, her face drawn with worry. "She is angry," Aduni said. "Oshun has withdrawn her sweetness. The drought is not the end. It is only the beginning." My father frowned. "What will she do?" Aduni's voice dropped. "She will remind us, stronger than before. I have seen it in dreams. The river rises, and it takes what it wants." I shivered. "Can nothing stop it?" Aduni placed a hand on my shoulder, her touch cool despite the heat. "If the people return to her with humility, she may forgive. But pride stands in the way. Adebayo's pride." Her words clung to me like smoke. The omen came days later. At dusk, as the town gathered for what little food remained, the air filled with fireflies, thousands upon thousands, their lights flickering in eerie unison. They swirled through the town, over rooftops, down paths, and finally toward the river. We followed, silent, hearts pounding. At the riverbank, the fireflies gathered in a thick, glowing cloud. The water shimmered faintly, though it had been dull for weeks, and then, faintly, so faintly we nearly missed it, we heard a sound. A woman's voice singing. It was not of this world. Sweet, sorrowful, carrying pain and warning. Aduni fell to her knees, tears streaming down her cheeks. "She calls," she whispered. "She calls us back. But if we do not answer..." She did not finish. She did not need to. The next morning, Adebayo gathered his men at the riverbank. He stood tall, bow in hand, his body painted with red camwood. His followers beat drums, mocking the priestess's chants. "If Oshun wants obedience, let her take it by force," he shouted. "We will not bow to fear." He lifted his bow high, aimed at the river, and loosed an arrow. The arrow struck the water with a sharp thwack, and the river answered. At the grove, the crowd parted. The elders cleared a path for Aduni, who knelt at the water's edge. She poured honey and palm wine into the river while speaking aloud. "Oshun, mother of sweet waters, we remember the wrath you showed. We remember the gifts you gave and the life you restored. Accept our offerings, bless Osogbo, and flow with us always." Then the people stepped forward, offering their gifts one by one. Some brought small tokens, beads, carved wooden animals, fruits from their harvest. Others brought the finest cloth they owned, embroidered with care. I watched, feeling the river's power. The water sparkled as if alive, reflecting the offerings, the people, the sky above. For a moment, it seemed the river was breathing, and we were part of its pulse. Even those who had doubted, even those who had mocked, fell silent. All eyes were on Aduni and the river. The true heart of the festival was the dance. Men and women, young and old, moved in patterns learned from generations of worshippers. They twirled, stamped, clapped, and leapt as if they were water itself. Aduni led the final dance. Her feet skimmed the ground lightly, her arms tracing waves in the air. People said the river responded to her movements. Currents rose and fell, ripples expanded outward, and sometimes, when the sun struck just right, the water gleamed gold like liquid sunlight. I could feel the river's spirit in every heartbeat. It was as though Oshun herself flowed through the dancers, reminding us of her presence, her power, her mercy. During the festival, elders would recount the history of Osogbo. They told of the first settlers, the wandering families who arrived hungry and afraid. They told of how Oshun appeared, her golden form rising from the river, to warn us, bless us, and demand respect. And they told the story of Adebayo, who had challenged the goddess. His arrogance had nearly destroyed the town, but his fall was also a lesson. No one can stand against Oshun and live unscathed. Children listened wide-eyed. Some shivered at the memory of the river's fury. Others marveled at the goddess's power. Every year, the story reminded us that life is fragile, that blessings come with responsibility, and that respect must never be forgotten. After the festival ended, Aduni would remain at the river. She stayed through the night, whispering prayers, watching the water, keeping her vigil. Sometimes she would speak to the river as if it were a person, thanking it, begging it to stay gentle, sharing the town's fears and hopes. Her devotion became legendary. People said she could hear the river's whispers, feel its currents beneath her feet, and see visions of what might come if Osogbo strayed from the covenant. I often watched her from afar. Her face would glow in the moonlight, calm yet filled with determination. I knew that as long as Aduni walked among us, Osun's presence was strong and Osogbo would survive. Yet peace was never guaranteed. Years passed, and new generations grew up who did not know the terror of the river's wrath. Some grew careless, leaving offerings to rot, neglecting the songs, forgetting the dances. Whenever that happened, the river reminded us. Crops would fail, fish would disappear, droughts would come, and sometimes small floods would sweep the banks, enough to frighten the people back into humility. We learned that blessings were not permanent. They were gifts to be cherished. And each year, the festival became more than celebration. It became a promise to honor Osun, to keep her close, to walk with respect along her banks. I remember one festival in particular. I was older then, and my younger siblings had never seen the river's anger. The river flowed gently, golden in the afternoon sun, and the town danced as usual. But Aduni noticed something. A group of young men had not prepared offerings, believing it was enough to join the dance. She stopped them, her voice ringing clear across the grove. Do not forget. Respect is not in the steps of your feet alone. It is in the gifts you give, the heart you bring. Osun watches. The young men fell silent, ashamed. The river shimmered brighter that day, as if acknowledging her words. I saw them learn humility, their eyes wide with understanding. That moment stayed with me. It was proof that the goddess not only punished pride, but rewarded respect, teaching the people with patience, mercy, and power intertwined. By the time the sun set, the festival would end. People returned to their homes, carrying memories, songs, and sometimes small gifts of fish or fruit to place at home altars. The river shimmered gently, flowing sweet and strong. We knew it would continue. The covenant between Osogbo and Osun was forever. The goddess gave life and sweetness, and we gave devotion and humility. Without it, we were nothing. And so, year after year, the people of Osogbo celebrated, danced, sang, and offered gifts to the river goddess. Children grew up with the story of the flood and the drought, of Adebayo's pride and downfall, and the mercy and power of Osun. We never forgot, because we had seen what happens when we do. The river was not only the goddess' home, it was part of every life in Osogbo. Every family had a story. Some spoke of children born after long waiting, blessed by Osun's waters. Others told of fishermen who returned with nets overflowing after leaving offerings on the bank. I remember old Mama Ireti. She told me how, as a young girl, she wandered near the river and fell into a hidden pool. Everyone thought she would drown, but the waters held her gently, and she emerged unharmed, laughing. "Osun saved me," she said. "She is kind when respected, fierce when scorned." Then there was my cousin, Tunde. His family had struggled for years to grow yams in the dry soil near the outskirts of town. One festival, they offered honey, cola nuts, and palm oil, placing them carefully in the river. The rains came soon after, and that year, their yams grew taller than anyone had seen in Osogbo. The river was a teacher, a guardian, and a mirror. It reflected the hearts of the people. Those who were humble found life. Those who were prideful felt its wrath. By this time, I had grown older. Children who had never known hunger or fear of the river grew up under Aduni's guidance. They learned the songs, the dances, the careful way to approach the river. They learned that Osun was not just a story, but a living presence, flowing in the water, in the laughter of fish, in the shimmer of light on the waves. One day, a boy named Kola asked me, "Why does the river choose some people to bless and not others?" I knelt by the water and let him watch the ripples. "The river gives to those who honor her," I said. "She does not take for fun, nor does she spare out of pity. She watches and she guides. If your heart is humble, she will bless you. If your heart is proud, she will test you." Kola nodded solemnly. "I will remember," he said. I smiled, seeing in him the same wonder and fear I had felt when I first saw Osun rise from the river so many years ago. Even after Adebayo's downfall, the goddess tested us. Small floods would sweep the edges of the town, enough to remind us she was alive. Sometimes, fish would disappear for weeks, forcing the fishermen to respect the river's rhythms. At times, crops would fail in small patches, reminding farmers to give thanks before taking the harvest. Each trial was brief, but it left a mark. People grew patient, careful, and humble. Children learned early to place offerings in the river, to sing the songs correctly, to dance with care. Adults learned that wealth and strength could not replace respect for the goddess. And the river flowed, always teaching, always watching. I remember my own lesson well. One season I was proud of my harvest. I had yams so large that I bragged to neighbors, thinking myself clever and skilled. I neglected to leave offerings for Osun, believing my work alone would be enough. The next morning, I returned to the river to wash my hands, and I found it low and sluggish. The water, usually cool and sweet, felt heavy and almost bitter. Fish floated near the surface, lifeless. I fell to my knees and prayed, begging for forgiveness. I offered honey, palm oil, and fresh cola nuts. I danced along the banks, calling the goddess' name. Slowly the river stirred, fish leapt, and sweetness returned. I learned that day, no skill, no pride, no strength can replace devotion. Osun gives life, but she does not tolerate arrogance. Years passed, and Osogbo flourished. The town became known across the lands, not only for its markets and fertile soil, but for its devotion to Oshun. Travelers spoke of the river's sweetness, the miraculous fertility of the land, and the priestess's dances that seemed to make the river itself move. Every year, the festival reminded us, blessings are not earned through strength alone. They are given, nurtured, and respected. I watched families grow, children laugh, and the river shimmer in golden light. I watched Aduni grow older, yet still strong, still carrying the goddess's spirit within her. I understood finally that the covenant was more than gifts or dances. It was memory, humility, and the eternal flow between humans and the divine. I sit now by the river as I write this, years older and wiser. The water glimmers beneath the sun, sweet and clear, carrying fish, blessings, and stories alike. Children play along the banks, mothers call them in for lunch, and traders load canoes with yams and cloth. The river speaks softly now, a gentle murmur of life and promise. I see in it the faces of those who came before, Adebayo, Aduni, my father, Mama Ireti, and I remember the lessons. Pride leads to ruin, humility brings life, devotion keeps the covenant. Oshun is not just a river. She is memory, warning, guidance, and blessing. She is alive in every ripple, every shimmer, every drop that touches our hands. And Osogbo will never forget, for if we do, she will remind us again.